Daniel Carter stood before the Galactic Council and tried not to let his nerves show. The chamber stretched out before him like a massive arena, with hundreds of alien species seated in rings that climbed toward a ceiling he could barely see. 3 months ago, he had been a military medic on Earth. Now he was humanity's ambassador to the galaxy, and every eye in the room was fixed on him. Most of those eyes were not friendly. "The humans wish to join our council," Ambassador said from his seat at the high table. The reptilian leader's scales gleamed under the chamber lights as he gestured dismissively toward Daniel. "Let us review their qualifications." Daniel cleared his throat. The sound echoed in the vast space, and he saw several aliens exchange glances. He fought the urge to cough again. He had been feeling under the weather for the past day, but there was no way he could postpone this presentation. Humanity had waited too long for this moment. Lisa Morgan, the on his team, activated the display behind them. Earth appeared as a blue and green sphere rotating slowly. Data scrolled alongside the image. "Earth is our home world," Daniel began. "It has a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, moderate gravity, and temperatures ranging from -89 to 58 degrees, interrupted. The representative clicked his mandibles in what Daniel had learned was laughter. "Such a narrow range. How do you survive?" "We adapt," Lisa said quietly from beside Daniel. "Humans can live in many environments." "With technology, perhaps," said. He leaned forward, his yellow eyes studying the data. "But your biology itself is remarkably fragile. You require specific temperature ranges to function. Your bodies fail without constant hydration. You cannot survive in most of the galaxy's natural environments." Daniel felt his face grow warm. Every species has requirements. "Indeed," said High Chancellor. The crystalline being's voice resonated like wind chimes. Unlike the others, the Chancellor seemed genuinely curious rather than mocking. "But the Council must consider whether your species can truly thrive among us. Please continue." Daniel pulled up the next set of data. His throat tickled, but he swallowed hard and pressed on. "Human average 70 to 80 years. We reach maturity at 18 years and—" The chamber erupted in clicking, hissing, and other sounds Daniel recognized as alien laughter. 80 years, Wings buzzed. "I myself am 400 years old. The Chancellor has lived for 3,000. You are children playing at galactic politics." "Our short lives make us efficient," Lisa countered. "We accomplish much in the time we have." "Or perhaps you simply die before learning wisdom," said coldly. Daniel's throat burned. He desperately needed to cough but held it back. He clicked to the next section, which detailed human immune responses and disease resistance. Studied the information, and his expression shifted to something like pity. "Your bodies attack themselves over minor irritants. These allergic reactions you describe, your own cells destroying your tissue because of pollen or certain foods. How do you consider this advanced?" "Our immune system is complex," Lisa said, stepping forward. "It can adapt to new threats and create permanent defenses. Once exposed to a disease, we often become immune to it. Our bodies remember and—" "Primitive," interrupted. "Truly advanced species engineered such weaknesses out of our biology millions of years ago. We do not suffer from sneezing or coughing or fevers." Daniel could not hold it back any longer. A cough burst from his chest, harsh and wet. The sound silenced the chamber instantly. Every alien stared at him. "I apologize," Daniel said, his voice rough. "I have a minor cold. It is not serious." "A cold," repeated slowly. "Your body is currently fighting an infection." "A mild one," Daniel assured him. "It will pass in a few days." "And yet you brought an infectious disease into this chamber," said. His wings spread in agitation. "You expose us all to your illness." "Human diseases do not transfer to other species," Lisa said quickly. "Our biology is too different. You are perfectly safe." Waved a clawed hand. "The fragility of your species continues to astound. You cannot even stand before us without your body betraying you." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. "Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. We have thrived on a world that constantly tries to kill us. Our biology may seem weak to you, but it has made us strong." "Strong," clicked derisively. "You shiver in cold, burn in heat, drown in water, and suffocate in most atmospheres. Your bodies require sleep every single day. You must consume food multiple times daily or you grow weak. You are so fragile that a simple cough interrupts your speech." The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Daniel looked around at the hundreds of species, all of them judging humanity and finding it wanting. Chancellor raised one crystalline appendage, and the noise ceased. "The human delegation has presented their case. We shall now vote on their application for council membership." Daniel held his breath as the votes appeared on the display. Red lights dominated the board, with only a few scattered greens. "The measure fails," announced. "However, in recognition of your technological achievements, we will grant probationary status. You may establish an embassy on this station and attend council sessions as observers. In 5 years, you may reapply for full membership." "That is fair," Lisa whispered to Daniel, but he could hear the disappointment in her voice. "You will, of course, be restricted from certain areas," added. "We cannot risk exposure to your various biological weaknesses and diseases. Quarantine protocols will be established for all human quarters." Daniel wanted to argue, to defend his species further, but another cough built in his chest. He fought it down, not wanting to give them more ammunition. "We accept the council's decision," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Humanity thanks you for this opportunity." "See that you prove yourselves worthy of it," said, "Dismissed." As Daniel and Lisa left the chamber, he finally let the cough free. It rattled in his chest, painful and embarrassing. "That went well," Lisa said sarcastically. "They see us as weak," Daniel said quietly. "Every species in that room thinks we are too fragile to matter." "Then we will prove them wrong," Lisa replied. "We always do." Daniel nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. He wiped his nose with a tissue and threw it in a disposal. Daniel Carter lay in his quarters on Prime Zenith Station and stared at the ceiling. His cold had gotten worse over the past 3 days. His head pounded, his throat felt like sandpaper, and every breath seemed to rattle in his chest. Doctor had examined him and declared it a typical upper respiratory infection. Bed rest, fluids, and time would cure it. But the quarantine had been unexpected. "It is just a precaution," Station Medical Director Al had explained in her musical voice. The avian doctor's feathers had ruffled with what might have been concern. "We cannot be too careful with unknown pathogens." So Daniel remained in the human quarters while Lisa and the others handled diplomatic duties. It was humiliating, being trapped because of a common cold. The council's mockery echoed in his mind. On the 4th day after his presentation, everything changed. Lisa burst into his quarters, her face pale. "Daniel, turn on the station news feed, now." He fumbled for the control and activated the holographic display. The image showed the station's main medical bay, and even through the translation, the panic was clear. "Ambassador has been admitted in critical condition," the news anchor reported. "Medical staff are baffled by his symptoms, which include severe respiratory distress, high fever, and organ failure. 3 other council members have also fallen ill with similar symptoms." Daniel sat up too quickly and his head spun. "What happened to them?" "They do not know," Lisa said. She paced the small room, her hands shaking. "But Daniel, all 4 of them were in the council chamber during your presentation. They all had direct contact with our delegation." The implication hung in the air between them. "That is impossible," Daniel said. "Human diseases cannot jump to alien species. Our biology is too different." "That is what I told them," Lisa replied. "But they are testing everyone who was near us, is with Al now trying to help." Over the next week, the situation spiraled out of control. The number of sick aliens climbed steadily. 5 cases became 10, then 20, then 50. Species that had never shown vulnerability to any disease were collapsing with terrifying speed. The symptoms varied wildly. Some aliens suffered respiratory failure. Others experienced neurological damage or complete organ shutdown. The only common factor was exposure to the human delegation. Station Commander Axe ordered emergency protocols. The human quarters became a hard quarantine zone. Armed guards stood at every entrance. The other human staff members were pulled from their posts and confined with Daniel. "This is insane," said during one of his brief visits before he too was quarantined. "I have examined Daniel thoroughly. He has a rhinovirus, a common cold. It should be completely harmless to non-human biology." But the evidence said otherwise. Lisa spent her days analyzing data from the medical bay. The station had granted her remote access to their systems, desperate for any insights she could provide. She sat at her terminal for hours, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "It does not make sense," she muttered, scrolling through genetic sequences. "Rhinoviruses are specific to human cellular structures. They should not even be able to enter alien cells, let alone replicate." Daniel watched her work, feeling useless and guilty. Every cough from his throat felt like a weapon now. He had recovered from his cold, but the damage was already done. On day 10, collapsed during a council session. The who had mocked human weakness so confidently was now fighting for his life. The cruel irony was not lost on anyone. The station medical bay overflowed with patients. 15 different species now showed symptoms. The death toll began climbing. 3 aliens died on day 11, 5 more on day 12. The numbers kept rising. Price, a human immunologist stationed on the embassy level, joined Lisa's research efforts. Together, they worked around the clock, trying to understand what was happening. "I found something," announced on day 13. Her voice was hoarse from exhaustion. "The virus is mutating." Lisa leaned over her shoulder to look at the display. "Show me." "The rhinovirus that Daniel carried was normal when he arrived," explained, highlighting sections of genetic code. "But when it encountered alien biology, it changed. Each species it touches causes a different mutation. It is like the virus is adapting to overcome their immune systems." "But why would it do that?" Daniel asked. "It never acted this way on Earth." "Because on Earth it only encounters human biology," Lisa said slowly. Understanding dawned in her eyes. "Our immune systems recognize rhinoviruses. We have evolutionary defenses against them. But these aliens have never encountered anything like this. Their immune systems do not even register it as a threat until it is too late." Had joined them through a video link from the medical bay. His face was grim. "It gets worse. The alien immune systems, when they finally do react, overreact. They are destroying their own tissue trying to fight the infection. The virus kills them in hours when it would make a human mildly uncomfortable for a few days." Daniel felt sick and not from any virus. "How many dead?" 217 as of this morning," said quietly, "and hundreds more critical." Axe appeared on the main display, his amphibian features drawn with stress. "The Council demands answers. They are calling for the expulsion of all humans from the station. Some are demanding that Earth itself be quarantined from the galaxy." "We are trying to find a solution," Lisa said. "Try harder," Axe said, "because if this spreads beyond the station, it could devastate the entire galactic community. We are looking at an extinction-level plague, and it came from a human cold." The screen went dark. Daniel looked at his hands as if they were weapons. In a way, they were. His body, his biology, the very thing the Council had mocked as weak and primitive, had become the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. "There has to be something we can do," he said. Lisa and exchanged glances. "There might be," said carefully, "but the Council is not going to like it." "What's?" Daniel demanded. "The same human biology they despise might be the only thing that can save them," Lisa explained. "Our immune systems create antibodies to fight infections. Those antibodies are specific proteins that target and destroy pathogens. If we can isolate the antibodies that fight rhinoviruses and adapt them for alien biology." "You want to use human biological material to treat them," Daniel finished. "It is the only option I can see," said. "But it means asking them to accept help from the species they see as inferior, to literally put human biology into their bodies." Daniel thought about its condescending tone, its mocking laughter, the hundreds of aliens who had voted against humanity's membership. They had treated humans as weak, fragile, unworthy. Now they were dying because they had underestimated just how dangerous that weakness could be. "Contact the Council," Daniel said. "Tell them we have a possible treatment. Tell them we want to help." "And if they refuse?" asked. Daniel looked out the window at the vast station, at the thousands of species living and working together. He thought about the bodies piling up in the medical bay, about dying from the same disease that had merely inconvenienced Daniel for a week. "Then we try anyway," he said. "Because that is what humans do. We survive, we adapt, and we help others survive too, even when they do not deserve it." Lisa nodded and turned back to her terminal. "I will prepare the proposal." Start the emergency transport from Earth arrived on day 15. Dr. Amy stepped off the ship carrying 3 cases of medical equipment and a team of 12 specialists. She was a virologist with 20 years of experience, and she had spent the entire 3-day journey reviewing the data Lisa and had sent. Her first words were not encouraging. "This is worse than I thought," she said, looking at the genetic sequences on Lisa's display. "The virus has mutated into 17 distinct strains. Each one is perfectly adapted to a different alien species." Daniel sat nearby, still weak from donating plasma earlier that morning. Had taken 3 units of blood, and while Daniel knew he could spare it, the dizziness remained. "Can we still use human antibodies to treat them?" Amy considered the question carefully. "In theory, yes. Human antibodies are remarkably adaptable, but we will need to modify them for each species. What works for the reptilian species might kill what saves the avians might be useless for the crystalline beings." "How long will that take?" Lisa asked. "For one species, maybe 3 days in the lab. For 17, Amy shook her head. "Weeks, maybe months, and they do not have that kind of time." The death toll had reached 400 by that afternoon. The medical bay had run out of space days ago. Temporary facilities had been set up in cargo bays and meeting halls. Doctors from 100 different species worked themselves to exhaustion, but they were losing the battle. Station Commander Axe had sealed Prime Zenith completely. No ships could enter or leave. The quarantine was absolute. If the plague spread to other worlds, the death count would climb into the millions. On day 16, his personal physician contacted the human quarters. The ambassador wanted to speak with Daniel. They met through a video link. Lay in a medical pod, his once vibrant wings now dull and tattered. Breathing tubes ran into his thorax. His compound eyes struggled to focus. "You did this," rasped. "Your weakness, your disease." Daniel met his gaze steadily. "Yes, my cold started this. I am sorry." "Sorry," repeated. The word seemed to drain what little energy he had left. "I am dying because of a human sneeze, and you are sorry." "We are working on a cure," Daniel said. "Doctor thinks we can." "I know what you are offering," interrupted. "Human biological material, proteins from your inferior immune system." He coughed, and the sound was wet and horrible. "Do you know what the Council is saying? They would rather die than accept help from humans." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. "Then they are fools." "Perhaps," said. "Or perhaps they simply cannot bear the humiliation. We mocked you. We called you weak, fragile, primitive. And now our lives depend on the very biology we despised." "Pride is a luxury you cannot afford right now," Daniel said coldly. "Your choice is simple. Accept our help and live, or refuse and die. There is no third option." Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "I was cruel to you in the council chamber. I mocked your cough, your weakness, your short lives. I thought humanity was beneath us." "You did," Daniel agreed. "I was wrong," said. "Not because you are strong, but because strength and weakness mean nothing when death comes. I do not want to die human. I do not want my species to die. If your inferior biology can save us, then I will swallow my pride and accept it." "You are not the one we need to convince," Daniel said. "It is the council." "Leave that to me," replied, "if I survive long enough." The next day, High Chancellor called an emergency council session. Most members attended remotely from their medical beds. Those who were healthy enough to stand did so in the chamber, but their numbers had dwindled dramatically. Amy presented the treatment proposal alongside Lisa, and she explained the science in terms everyone could understand, though her frustration at their biological ignorance showed through. "Human antibodies are complex proteins that recognize and neutralize pathogens," Amy said. "We have isolated the antibodies that target rhinoviruses, and we can adapt them to work with your biology. The treatment is not perfect, but our models show an 80% survival rate for early-stage infections." "And the other 20%? Asked from his medical pod. The reptilian ambassador looked like a shadow of his former self. "We'll die anyway," Amy said bluntly. "This plague has a 95% fatality rate without treatment. We are offering you a chance, not a guarantee." "A chance bought with human weakness," one of the Healthy Council members said. "How do we know this is not another trick, another disease waiting to kill us?" Daniel stepped forward before Amy could respond. You think we planned this, that I deliberately infected myself and came here to start a plague? That is insane. Is it? The council member challenged. You wanted full membership. Now you offer us the only cure and we must be grateful to you. Convenient. 512 aliens are dead, Daniel said, his voice rising. Hundreds more are dying as we speak. If you think humanity would commit genocide just to gain political favor, then you understand nothing about us. His crystalline form chimed softly, drawing attention. The human speaks truth. I have studied their history. They have fought wars, yes, committed atrocities, yes, but they have also shown remarkable compassion even to enemies. They have a saying, do no harm. I believe they honor it now. Then you are a fool, the council member spat. Perhaps, said, but I am a fool who wishes to live. I will accept the human treatment. As will I, added weakly. I have spent these past days thinking about the things I said to Ambassador Carter. I called his biology weak. I said his immune system was primitive. I was wrong on both counts. A primitive immune system could not create the antibodies that might save my life. A weak biology could not have survived on Earth, which is far harsher than my own world. His voice came through the speakers, thin and fragile. I cast my vote for acceptance. I mocked the humans and I was wrong. If we die now because of our pride, we die as fools. The vote was close, but it passed. The council authorized the human medical team to begin treatment immediately. Amy and her team worked through the night. They synthesized antibodies, adapted them for different alien biologies, and prepared the first doses, managed the complex process of matching treatments to species, coordinated with alien medical staff who were willing to administer the cure. Daniel donated plasma again, even though protested that he needed to recover. So did Lisa and the other 8 humans on the station. They gave until they were lightheaded and weak, then gave more. The first patient he had requested it specifically, saying that if the treatment was going to fail, he wanted to be the one to find out. Amy personally administered the injection, her hands steady despite the pressure. For 3 hours, nothing happened. Then vital signs began to stabilize. His fever dropped. His breathing eased. By the next morning, he was sitting up in his medical pod, weak but alive. The second patient his treatment was more complicated because biology was so different from mammalian. Amy had to adjust the antibody configuration 3 times before she found one that worked. When his compound eyes finally focused clearly again, he looked at her with something like wonder. It worked, he said. Your primitive medicine actually worked. It is not primitive, Amy corrected him gently. It is sophisticated in ways you never bothered to understand. Within 2 days, they had treated 100 patients. Within a week, 500. The death toll stopped climbing. The medical bays began to empty as aliens recovered and returned to their quarters. But not everyone survived. 800 aliens had died before the treatment could reach them. 800 lives lost because of a simple cold, because of biological incompatibility, because first contact had consequences no one had predicted. Daniel stood in the memorial garden that had been hastily constructed on the station's observation deck. Holographic markers represented each death, floating in the air like stars. So many species, so many lives. Lisa found him there late one night. The production facility hummed with activity. Amy had converted an entire cargo bay into a laboratory for synthesizing antibodies on a massive scale. Machines worked around the clock, processing human plasma donations into treatments for 17 different alien species. Stood at the central console, managing the complex scheduling. Each species required a slightly different antibody configuration. Each treatment had to be precisely calibrated. One mistake could kill the patient instead of curing them. We have enough doses ready for another 200 patients, she reported during the morning briefing. But we are running low on human plasma. We need more donors. Daniel looked around the room at the 9 other humans on the station. They had all donated multiple times already, had put limits on how often each person could give, but they were pushing those limits hard. Earth is sending another ship, Lisa said, but it will not arrive for 4 more days. We need plasma now. Then we donate again, Daniel said simply. How much do you need? Shook his head. Daniel, you donated twice yesterday. Your iron levels are too low. If you give again, you will collapse. Then I will collapse, Daniel replied. How much do you need? The truth was that every human on the station was exhausted. They had been working 18-hour days for 2 weeks straight. They donated plasma until they were dizzy, then worked through the dizziness. They ate nutrient bars at their stations and slept in 4-hour shifts when they could. But they were winning. The survival rate for treated patients had climbed to 87%. Aliens who had been at death's door were now walking out of medical bays. The plague that had seemed unstoppable was finally being contained. On day 23, walked into the human quarters unannounced. He moved slowly, still recovering from his illness, but he was alive. The guards at the door tried to stop him, but he waved them away. "I need to speak with Ambassador Carter," he said. Daniel met him in the common area. The reptilian looked different somehow, humbled. The arrogance that had defined him in the council chamber was gone. "I came to apologize," said without preamble, "for my words in the council, for my assumptions about your species, for my pride." Daniel gestured to a chair. "Sit down before you fall down. You should still be in medical." Settled carefully onto the seat. "I could not wait any longer. Every day I delayed felt like cowardice." He looked at Daniel with eyes that held genuine regret. "I called you weak. I mocked your biology. I laughed at your cough, and that cough nearly killed me." "It did kill 800 others," Daniel said quietly. "I know," replied. "I have been to the memorial garden. I have seen their names. Some were my friends. Some were colleagues I respected for centuries. Gone because we were too proud to recognize that different does not mean inferior." "We tried to tell you that human biology was complex," Lisa said from across the room. "You did not want to listen." "No, we did not," agreed. "We had convinced ourselves that we were superior, that our long lives and engineered immune systems made us better than species like yours. We were wrong." He reached into his robe and pulled out a data pad. "The council is meeting tomorrow. They will vote on humanity's status. I have spent the past week speaking with every member who survived. I have showed them the evidence. I have made them understand what your people have done for us." "What we had to do," Daniel corrected. "We caused this plague. Fixing it was our responsibility." "You did more than fix it," said. "You could have demanded concessions. You could have negotiated for full council membership in exchange for the cure. Some species would have. Instead, you simply helped. You asked for nothing in return." Daniel thought about the 800 dead aliens. "We asked for a chance to prove ourselves. I guess we got it, just not the way anyone expected." The next day, the Galactic Council convened for the first time since the plague began. The chamber looked different now. So many seats were empty. The species who had lost members wore symbols of mourning in their various customs. The air felt heavy with grief and memory. High Chancellor called the session to order. His crystalline form chimed solemnly. "We gathered a vote on humanity's petition for full council membership," he began. "But first, we must acknowledge what has occurred. 803 of our people died in the plague that began 26 days ago. Thousands more came close to death. We face the largest loss of life this council has seen in 500 years." The chamber was silent. "The plague came from Earth," continued. "A simple human cold transformed into something deadly by contact with our biology. We could blame humanity for this. We could demand reparations. We could expel them from the station and quarantine their world forever." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. This was it, the moment when the council decided humanity's fate. "But that would be unjust," said, "because the humans did not knowingly bring disease among us. They warned us their biology was different. We dismissed their warnings. They explained their immune systems were complex. We called them primitive. They came seeking friendship, and we responded with mockery." Stood, leaning heavily on a support staff. "I was among the worst offenders. I called Ambassador Carter weak as he stood before us fighting an infection. I laughed at human fragility. I was blind to the truth that our perfect engineered biology had made us vulnerable in ways we never imagined." His voice came through the speakers. He was still too weak to attend in person. "The humans saved us. They donated their own blood, their own biological material to create a cure. They worked until they collapsed from exhaustion. They asked for nothing in return. If that is weakness, then I pray my species learns to be so weak." More council members stood to speak. Each one acknowledged their prejudice. Each one admitted they had been wrong about humanity. The confessions went on for an hour. Finally called for the vote. "All in favor of granting humanity full council membership with no restrictions or probationary period." Indicate now. The display lit up with green lights. Every single member voted yes. Daniel felt Lisa grab his hand. Around him, the other humans sat in stunned silence. The motion passes unanimously, announced. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities therein. The chamber erupted in sounds that Daniel had learned to recognize as applause from various species. But it was not the enthusiastic celebration of victory. It was something more somber, respectful, earned through tragedy and loss. There are additional measures the Council wishes to implement, continued. First, we formally apologize to humanity for our treatment of you. We allowed prejudice to blind us to your value. Second, we propose the creation of a new position, Chief Safety Officer. This person will be responsible for establishing protocols to prevent future biological incidents between species. We would like Dr. Lisa Morgan to accept this role. Lisa's eyes widened. She looked at Daniel, who nodded encouragingly. I accept, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Third, we propose the establishment of the Disease Prevention Institute, to be headed by Dr. Amy if she agrees. This institute will study biological compatibility between species and develop treatments for future outbreaks. Amy, sitting in the gallery, stood and bowed. I would be honored. Finally, said, and his tone grew heavy, we propose that Earth be declared a protected world, not because we fear you, but because we now understand that your biology, which we mocked as weak, is actually the most dangerous thing in this galaxy. Future contact with Earth will require strict biological screening, not to protect us from you, but to protect both our peoples from the consequences of contact. Daniel understood the wisdom in this, even if it stung. We accept these terms. Then it is done, said. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Carter. May humanity's presence make us all wiser. As the session ended and the various species filed out, Greg, the human security officer, appeared at Daniel's side. 3 months had passed since the plague. Prime Zenith Station had returned to something resembling normal, though the scars remained. The memorial garden had been expanded and made permanent. Species from across the galaxy came to pay respects to the 803 who had died. Daniel stood in the council chamber once again, but this time everything was different. He wore the formal robes of a full council ambassador. His seat was no longer in the observer section, but among the voting members. Around him sat the representatives of hundreds of species, and when he spoke, they listened. The Disease Prevention Institute has completed its first round of biological compatibility assessments, Daniel reported, reading from Lisa's data. We have identified 47 potential dangerous interactions between species currently serving on this station. Protocols are being implemented to prevent future incidents. Now fully recovered and returned to his position as council leader, nodded approvingly. Dr. Morgan's work has been invaluable. The protocols she established have already prevented 3 potential outbreaks. Lisa sat in the gallery reserved for department heads. She had thrown herself into her new role with fierce dedication. The biological safety guidelines she created were now mandatory for all council stations. Every species had to be screened for potential pathogen exchange before being allowed into shared spaces. Some species have complained that the protocols are too restrictive, noted. He had also recovered, though his wings never regained their former brightness. The plague had left permanent marks on him. They say we are being paranoid. 803 deaths suggest otherwise, Daniel replied calmly. The protocols stay. No one argued. The memory of the plague was too fresh, too painful. Species that had once seen themselves as invulnerable now understood their mortality. The council that had mocked human weakness now implemented human safety standards galaxy-wide. Amy's institute had grown rapidly. She now commanded a staff of 200 researchers from 50 different species. Her laboratory occupied an entire section of the station. The research they conducted there was saving lives across the galaxy. Doctor reports another breakthrough, Daniel continued. Her team has successfully adapted human antibody production techniques for the species. They can now manufacture their own medical treatments instead of relying on expensive imports. Remarkable, Chancellor said. Human biology continues to surprise us. That was an understatement. In the 3 months since the plague, Humanity had gone from being seen as the weakest species in the galaxy to being recognized as medical pioneers. Other species now came to Earth seeking expertise. Universities across human space were flooded with applications from alien students wanting to study human immunology. The Council had learned a hard lesson. What they had dismissed as primitive weakness was actually sophisticated strength. Human bodies, forced to survive on a harsh world filled with diseases and dangers, had developed immune systems more complex than anything the galaxy had seen before. Systems that could be studied, adapted, and used to save lives. But the transformation went deeper than just medicine. "There is one final matter to discuss," said. "The proposal to establish a galactic health organization to be headquartered on Earth and led by human administrators. The Council must vote." Daniel kept his expression neutral, but inside he marveled at how far things had come. Earth, which 3 months ago had been even basic Council membership, was now being offered the chance to lead a galaxy-wide health initiative. "I have concerns," said one of the Council members, a gaseous being whose voice came through translation devices. "Not about human capability, but about the message this sends. We scorned them, they nearly destroyed us accidentally, and now we give them more power. It seems like we are rewarding the species that caused the plague." "The species that caused the plague also cured it," said sharply. "They gave their blood to save us. They worked themselves to exhaustion to develop treatments. They asked for nothing in return. If we cannot trust them with this responsibility, who can we trust?" "The human proverb applies here," added. "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We were fools to underestimate humanity. Let us not be fools twice by failing to recognize their value now." The vote passed with an overwhelming majority. After the session ended, Daniel walked to the memorial garden. It had become a habit over the past months. He came here to think, to remember, to remind himself why the work mattered. Found him there, as he often did. The reptilian had made his own ritual of visiting the garden. He knew each name by heart. "Do you think they would approve?" asked quietly, gesturing at the floating holographic markers. "Of what we have built from their deaths?" "I hope so," Daniel replied. "We cannot bring them back, but we can make sure their deaths meant something." "The galaxy has changed because of them," said. "Because of you, 3 months ago I stood in that council chamber and called you weak. Now I come here every day to remind myself how wrong I was." "You were not entirely wrong," Daniel admitted. "Humans are weak in many ways, our bodies are fragile, we need specific conditions to survive, we get sick easily." "But you turned that weakness into strength," said. "Your fragile bodies forced you to develop medicine. Your susceptibility to disease made you experts in fighting it. Your short lives make you urgent, driven, determined to accomplish much in the time you have." He turned to face Daniel fully. "I have lived for 347 years. I thought that made me wise, but I have learned more from humans in 3 months than I learned in the previous 3 centuries." "What have you learned?" Daniel asked. "That strength and weakness are not opposites," said. "They are the same thing viewed from different angles. What makes you vulnerable also makes you capable. Your biology, which we mocked, is dangerous precisely because it is adaptable. Your immune system overreacts to threats because it has learned to recognize threats we never faced. You are strong because you had to be. You are capable because you had no choice." Daniel thought about Earth with its diseases and disasters and dangers. He thought about humanity clawing its way up from caves to cities to starships. Every step forward had been a struggle. Every advance had cost lives. Humans had survived not despite their weakness, but because of it. Because weakness forced them to adapt, to learn, to overcome. "The Council is planning a formal ceremony next month," continued. "To commemorate the plague and honor those who died. They want you to speak." "What should I say?" Daniel asked. "The truth," replied. "That we failed to see value in difference, that our pride blinded us, that we nearly paid the ultimate price for our arrogance." He placed a clawed hand on Daniel's shoulder. "And perhaps remind them that humanity, despite everything we did to you, despite our mockery and our cruelty, chose to save us anyway. That is the real strength. Not your biology or your medicine or your immune systems. Your choice to help those who had wronged you." The ceremony took place 4 weeks later. Representatives from every member species attended. The chamber was filled to capacity, with thousands more watching from across the galaxy. Daniel stood before them, looking out at the assembled aliens. He saw wings carefully folded. He saw crystalline form gleaming. He saw Amy and Lisa and Greg, his fellow humans who had worked so hard to save so many. He saw the holographic displays showing the 800 and 3 who could not be there. 3 months ago, I stood in this chamber and coughed, Daniel began. It was embarrassing. I had a cold and I was trying to convince you that humanity deserved a place among you. My cough became a symbol of human weakness. You mocked it. You mocked us. The chamber was silent. That cough killed 803 people, Daniel continued, his voice steady. It started a plague that nearly destroyed this station. It proved that human weakness was far more dangerous than anyone imagined. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. But it also proved something else. It proved that the things you saw as weaknesses were actually strengths you did not understand. Our complex immune system, which you called primitive, became the key to the cure. Our fragile biology, which you dismissed, turned out to be the most sophisticated in the galaxy. Our short lives, which you gave us the urgency to work day and night to save you. Daniel looked directly at the camera broadcasting to the galaxy. We are not asking you to see us as superior. We are asking you to see us as different, to understand that difference is not deficiency, that what seems weak from one perspective might be strong from another, that the galaxy is richer when we embrace all forms of life, not just the ones that match our preconceptions. He gestured to the memorial display. 803 people died to teach us this lesson. Let us honor them by learning it well. Let us build a galaxy where strength is measured not by how invulnerable we are, but by how we help others in their vulnerability. Let us remember that the species you mock today might save your life tomorrow. Daniel stepped back from the podium, and the chamber filled with sounds of approval from 100 different species. As the ceremony concluded and the crowds dispersed, Daniel returned one final time to the memorial garden. But this time, he was not alone. Representatives from dozens of species joined him, each one placing their own cultural symbol of remembrance among the holographic markers. Stood beside him and spoke quietly. You know what the strangest part is? If you had not coughed that day, if you had not brought your cold to the council, humanity might still be fighting for acceptance. It took a catastrophe for us to see your value. I would have preferred a less deadly path, Daniel said. As would we all, agreed. But perhaps this was the only way. Perhaps we needed to be reminded of our own vulnerability before we could appreciate the strength in yours. Daniel looked up at the stars visible through the garden's transparent ceiling. Somewhere out there was Earth, the planet that had forged humanity in fire and disease and struggle. The planet that had made humans weak enough to be strong. He thought about all the species in the galaxy, each one shaped by their own worlds, their own challenges, their own unique evolution. Each one strong in some ways and weak in others. Each one valuable in ways the others might not immediately understand. And he smiled because for the first time since arriving at the station, Daniel Carter truly believed that humanity belonged here. Not because they had proven themselves superior, but because they had proven themselves human. Weak and strong, fragile and capable, limited and extraordinary. Just like everyone else in the galaxy, once you looked closely enough to see the truth. Behind him coughed lightly, clearing his throat. Every human in the garden froze, looking at him with sudden concern. The reptilian raised his hands quickly. It is just allergies, he assured them. The pollen from the memorial flowers. But he was smiling as he said it, and so was Daniel, because they both understood the irony. The council that had once mocked human coughs now lived in fear of them, and somehow in that fear they had finally found respect. The galaxy would never be the same, and that Daniel thought was exactly as it should be. We did it, Greg said quietly. We are actually in. At a terrible cost, Daniel replied, thinking again of the memorial garden. But we are in, Greg insisted. And we proved something important. We proved that the things they thought made us weak are actually our greatest strengths. Daniel wanted to feel triumphant, but all he felt was tired. Tired and sad and aware that nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity had joined the galactic community, but they had done so through tragedy rather than triumph. Still, as he looked at Lisa's excited face and saw Amy already making plans for her new institute, he felt a small spark of hope. Maybe something good could come from this after all. Maybe the 800 who died had not died in vain. Maybe humanity's weakness would save the galaxy in ways no one had yet imagined. "You cannot blame yourself," she said quietly. "I brought the disease here," Daniel replied. "Every death is because of me." "No," Lisa said firmly. "Every death is because the galaxy was not prepared for contact with Earth biology, because they assumed their superiority and never considered the danger. You did not kill them, Daniel. Ignorance did." He wanted to believe her, but as he looked at the 800 lights floating before him, all he could feel was the weight of his simple cough that had changed everything. On the antibody synthesis process, we will need volunteer donors." "I will go first," Daniel said immediately. "You might still be contagious," warned. "Then test me," Daniel replied. "But if my blood can save lives, take it. Take as much as you need." Outside the quarantine zone, alarms continued to sound as more aliens collapsed. The plague that had started with a simple cough was now threatening the entire galactic community. And the only cure was the very thing they had mocked: human biology. Knit around them, aliens gave them a wide berth, as if afraid human weakness might be contagious. If only they knew how right they were to be afraid, but Daniel did not know that yet. None of them did. The simple cold that had embarrassed him before the council was about to change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. For better and for worse,